Meet Eric, a computer science student at the University of Washington, Seattle, an internet Amazon, and a successful entrepreneur. Today, we'll learn how he got his internship and how you can better your chances at one. This is We Talk. All right, let's begin. To start off, can you briefly explain how does finding and applying to internships work?
Yeah, great question. It's kind of company dependent on how they decide to do it, but in general, there's like a very similar pattern where you kind of start off with an online application. The companies will usually post it on like LinkedIn or other job boards. And you just have to fill in some like personal information, like your name, email, and then especially your resume. So you just submit all of that. And when you do get to the next round, if you do get accepted, then you'll do an online assessment, which we usually abbreviate as OA. And this is just a test of your technical skills. So you just solve like leak code style problems. And I can dive a bit more into leak code later. And then once that is done, if you do get into the next round, it'll just be either like phone screens or interviews. And this is very company dependent. Specifically for Amazon, they only just did one final interview for me. I know some other companies may do like one or two phone screens and then a couple like interviews after that.
Gotcha.
And so that's the whole process.
Yeah, so a lot of layers.
It is, yeah, it can seem very...
and behavioral aspects to it. So what do you think made your application so compelling?
Yeah, I'll start with like the resume part. What I did for my resume was using like the STAR method. You might have heard of this, like situation, task, action, result, and just like use those concepts to like highlight my past experiences. So for example, for my Eat Together startup, made sure to kind of like outline specific scenarios I encountered and then just how I tackled them. And then also showing metrics. Like they really love numbers. Numbers are just, like a very unbiased way to show like what you've done. So just like highlighting those. Like even if it's just like, oh, I worked with like 4 people on this team, then that, that really helps my resume.
So what are some key do's and some don'ts when creating your application?
I would say key do's would be like just looking at the requirements and the job description and just make sure you kind of like match like the majority of those like points. No worries like if you don't get all of those requirements, but just make sure to kind of like get like the bare minimum ones. In terms of like don'ts, the common don't that I have would be if there's like a question that says additional like details or whatever, like even though it's like optional, I would still suggest filling it out with some kind of like information. For example, like what I would have is kind of like a templated like mini essay, mini paragraph sorts. That like, highlights my skills. So I say like, oh, I'm very skilled in like software development, like app development. I know how to like work well in teams. And then lastly, I would also write like why specifically this company. So I would do a little bit of research into the company and highlight that, I really like their like product or like industry and I really want to like work for them. So like, for example, take like Google, just say, oh, I'm like really like into like, I don't know, search engines for whatever reason. And just kind of like saying that and just like emphasizing that, oh, like your technical and soft skills can contribute to their mission of just like, making the internet a better place basically.
Yeah.
So that was just an example. I'm sure you could make that better, but yeah, so those are my do's and don'ts.
Awesome. So what do you think is the best way to prepare for technical interviews?
Yeah, you probably hear this. And I don't really have anything else to say about it, but leak code, right? Or like HackerRank or these like other like platforms for practicing these problems. You just kind of have to practice. That's like the best way to prepare for these. Not only is like, a great way to get an example of what a technical interview problem might look like. It's also great that like those companies, they might actually use some of those problems on like leak code or like HackerRank directly in their interview. It's a really good idea to kind of like do like a lot of problems to like practice, but also just like see like the actual like problems that might occur during your interview.
Of course, better your chances through lots and lots of practice.
Exactly.
And what do you think is the best way to prepare for behavioral interviews?
Yeah, for behavioral interviews.
Hold up. Only 2% of you guys are actually subscribed to the channel. If you're smart, which you are, and want to improve yourself through my academic and career content, or want to open your eyes to new experiences and insights, go subscribe. I'll even give you 3 seconds to do it. Awesome.
Practice is always a great thing. Like do mock interviews with like a friend or like a family member. And just like, the advice that I gave before, kind of like the STAR method, make sure to apply that in all of your like responses, and just kind of like practice common like interview questions, like, oh, when did you handle like a difficult like scenario, or like tell us about like the most like technically complex project you built, and maybe just like beforehand like write some like jot notes or notes of like what kind of things you would say, and just like use the STAR like method to structure your response, and so that way you will know how to comfortably like say it during an actual interview.
Gotcha. I really like this STAR method that you're talking about.
Yeah. If you don't know what it stands for situation, task, action, result. So I can just give an example. So say like, I don't know, I'm just trying to fix like a really like stupid bug or something. That would be a situation. The task would just be, I just need to figure out how to like fix that bug. The action would be, for example, I'd reach out to like my mentor for help. I search up like resources like on like Stack Overflow, or like just by searching up on Google. And the result was like, I fixed a bug and I was able to get the project done. So that's just a simple example of what I was
Yeah, and highlight what you took away from those situations and those experiences. For sure. What foundational coding skills or languages would you recommend people focus on to prepare for tech internships?
Yeah. There is no specific language, like go-to language to like prepare for these kinds of things. So just like whatever like computer science class or like online tutorial that you're using, and like if you're like the first language that you ever picked up, if you're comfortable enough with sticking with it, of course, just like try to stick with it and just like get yourself really familiarized with like using it to solve legal style problems and stuff. So that you can just use these during the interviews, because from most of the interviews I've done, usually recruiters aren't really that picky on like what language you use. Well, it might be very company dependent, but I feel like if you kind of stick with one language, and you can also use this knowledge to be able to pick up other languages easily as well. So keep that in mind too. But I would say generally for all companies, it's just like you can just like stick with like Python, Java, like JavaScript, or like C++. Those are like some common ones, and just like use those to solve those technical problems.
All right, I got it. So how are you liking your experience at Amazon so far? What have you learned? What are you doing? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I would say my Amazon internship experience has been pretty unexpected in terms of like the work culture, I'd say. I kind of expected to like come in just working like 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, just coming to like the office, being like very like punctual and stuff. But it actually turns out that like my team specifically, like we don't really have these like really like stringent rules. We do kind of have like a return to office policy where you have to come to the office at least like 3 times a week, but that's like way better than like coming all 5 days to the office. And then most of my team members just kind of like come at like random times, like maybe like 11 a.m. or even like after lunch at like 12. So yeah, it's really flexible on like the work structure that you can like choose for yourself, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, what a shock, but what a pleasant shock.
Yeah, pleasant shock for sure. But yeah, in terms of like the work itself, the project that I got assigned to, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Like, I don't know, initially I thought it was like an internal tool of sorts, but then like I got like more of the details and just seeing like why it's actually like important within like the my Amazon organization, and just being able to kind of like learn a lot of like new cool things, and just like be able to use those to work on this kind of project and be able to see it actually deployed is really cool. So yeah, really enjoying my like internship project and also just the overall experience.
I'm very glad you're liking it there.
Yeah.
To end off, what single piece of advice would you give to anyone who's dreaming of interning or one day working at a renowned tech company like Amazon?
Yeah, for sure. I think internship applications can be very like tiring, because like the failure rate or just like the rejection rate is actually very high. Like only like, I don't know, like less than like 1% of applicants might actually get the role. So I would just say just kind of like steel yourself, just like kind of be persistent and just like constantly like apply and just prepare yourself for like the upcoming like maybe like interviews and like online assessments that you'll get. So just keep in mind that this can be like a long process, but like all that matters is that you just get like at least one offer, right? That's what matters at the end of the day. Because like an internship experience is great nonetheless, no matter like what company it is from.
That's right.
So yeah, just don't be too discouraged if you get a lot of rejections. So that's my goal advice.
Be diligent and practice, persevere, and even if you get rejected, take it as a learning experience. It makes you better for the next application.
Yeah.
It's all a snowball, and I'm sure you're going to end up where you need to be.
Exactly.
That's great. Thank you for your comments, Eric.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your time.